Welcome to the Inspired Action Podcast. This is where we have motivational, inspiring conversations and interviews that we hope you'll enjoy listening to.
Join us and other inspired actioneers on this alchemical, transformational journey.
Welcome back to the Inspired Action Podcast. My name is Jay, and this is Pod 138, and we're back today to talk about the 13 Ghost Points again. And we're on this little series we're doing, and I have my co-host, Lita Herman, here with me in the studio in the worldwide headquarters of the Inspired Action Podcast. Hey, Lita.
Hey, Jay. Welcome back, Inspired Actioneers. So for those of you who've been following Season 8 all the way through, we're moving into the end of this series of the Ghost Points, and we're really bringing it to the deepest parts of discovering your authenticity through these magical 13 Ghost Point themes. And today, it's a really deep one. It's about intimacy and a return to innocence.
Deep intimacy and that return to innocence, yes. And I think that even if you've gotten the Ghost Points in the past or you're thinking about getting it, this whole series was about, educating and talking about it and starting the cultivation of it and just, getting a feeling for what this is about. We also have a new book coming out, which we're going to talk about later. But today we're talking about Ghost Hall and Ghost Hidden. I know I had a lot of enthusiasm for that, right? Like, woo, Ghost Hall. This is the deeper, darker stuff. So I'm just, in a very happy mood today. So just to remind our listeners, we're approaching these themes as, all that we talk about in the podcast, and the Ghost Points in particular, as self-cultivation opportunities, but also self-awareness. How can you take these themes and apply them in your own life or think about them in your own life? This series goes along with our new book, which is coming out soon.
Yay! Yeah, so the podcast is just about examining these themes without getting too technical into the points themselves. But the book, for the practitioners who are listening, is really going to take a deeper dive into how these Ghost Point treatments are done clinically.
Well, and I think the book is also for regular people.
It is.
I want to, they call it lay people, but like normal people or
self-cultivators.
Self-cultivators.
Yes, we really wrote it for everyone, and we believe practitioners also need to self-cultivate to do the Ghost Points. So the book is really for everyone, but we do include the more detailed information about each point that a practitioner might want to know in the book.
And it also aligns if you're a practitioner and you're like, yay, finally the book. Also lines up with our Master Alchemy program. We also have some advanced classes maybe coming down the pike more.
Yeah.
I don't even know what that means. What is coming down the pike? Like,
I don't know. I guess the
road?
Like the Mass Pike.
Oh,
we have here.
Coming down the pike.
Coming down the road.
Coming down that big road that charges you a toll every time you go bleep, bleep. No. And also, I just want to say that the book goes along with classes that we have and webinars. And, we have the Master Alchemy program. So it's all tied in. We're trying to give you as much information so you could start your own path first before you help others.
And we are going to have a book launch.
Woohoo! I can't wait.
Yeah, we're going to have a little Zoom party.
I'm going to make some swag.
Yeah.
First swag of 2025.
Okay. And if you would like to be notified of that event, you can go to the alchemylearningcenter.com and sign up for our book launch mailing list on the homepage.
Yes, and I'm going to make it so that we do some swag for 2025. And it'll be tied in with a review for sure. Well,
okay.
Definitely. If you do a review, we're going to make it really cool. I'll do something fun. So let's keep it. We'll keep that on the radar. It's coming. The book is 99.9999999% done. So it's coming. And so if you're listening February 2025, we're also going to invite you to a webinar that's coming up in just a week or so.
Yeah, I want to say a little bit about that.
Yeah, that is about the heart-centered alchemy. So I'm going to go ahead. You can jump right in.
Well, I want to say that it really ties into the Ghost Points because like in our last episode, we talked about Ghost Cave, which is the heart of the heart. And this webinar is really important for any practitioners out there who want to, start sort of experimenting with alchemical Chinese medicine or, again, a self-cultivator.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions after that episode.
Who just really wants to know more about what is this void of the heart. So the webinar will teach you how to access the void, and it's especially helpful, like I said, for practitioners, but anyone who wants to learn more about this.
Yeah, we'll try to see if we can get a couple of our Master Alchemy apprentice students to come and join, and you can ask them questions and see how they've applied it to their lives.
Yeah.
But it's also for anyone who's self-cultivating. So if you want to work on your heart-centered alchemy, or you're curious about alchemy, or curious about heart-centered alchemy, you know the rule, alchemylearningcenter.com. And then go to our live events page and all the details there.
Yeah.
And one more thing before we go back to the ghost points. If you like this podcast for any minute of any second of the 138 episodes, please take a second to rate and review and give us a little love here, because it does help other people find this podcast. We get emails every day from all over the world. So we're just humbled and blessed and grateful, and we want to keep it going. So anything you could do to help, we would say thank you now.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so let's get back to the 2 points.
Yay. Let's get back to Ghost Hall. And the name is a bit tricky because Hall isn't too descriptive. It's a little mysterious.
Yeah. So it's helpful to look at the actual character in Chinese that was used for the word hall. And it's kind of important here because you might think of like a grand entry hall to a palace, like that kind of hall. And that's not what the character is here. So those big halls where like you walk into a giant building, that hall
with maybe strangers there or someone having a party.
You might be meeting a lot of people, but they're mostly strangers or acquaintances. So that really correlates more to the idea of ghost heart, which we did talk about earlier in this series.
What podcast, Lita?
Pod 134.
How do you do that? I'd be like, I don't know, a few back. 134.
Yes. But the character for this point today is representing more like a little antechamber, receiving room, like right off of, we like to say, the heart of the palace, which would be your heart, right next to your heart, like a little receiving room where you could bring the most safest people, maybe the people that you even want to be intimate with in your life, and check them out and make sure they're really, truly safe.
That room, that little special room where you don't let just anyone else in, the people that you feel safe with.
Yeah. And so here's the clincher. You get to control who gets to be in that room.
Yeah. And for those of you who have felt like people have betrayed you in the past or violated boundaries in the past, this theme is really challenging. It can be a little hard for people. I don't like that word hard, but so I'm going to go back to challenging, right? There are so many nuances around your ability to be intimate with someone. Sometimes I think people forget that they do have control.
Yeah.
And so this is a nice way to cultivate this if you're challenged in that area.
Yeah, especially if you have been betrayed in the past. Ultimately, it's really back to trust again, but not just trusting a person. It's about a trust that maybe means trusting yourself, your own judgment, that you can trust what you think about someone. So it's that trust on a bigger scale.
Yeah, we like to say trust with a capital T, especially if we're talking about the water element. You know, that even if someone did betray you, you'd survive, you'd be okay. You have that inner knowing, that trust with a capital T.
Yeah, it's that idea that having loved someone fully and then maybe losing them, you'd still be better off than never having loved at all.
Yeah, it's about that true vulnerability that we talk about also on a very intimate scale. It's like exposing your heart.
Yeah.
Right? Exposing.
And it's really, that's a tough one, Jay, for a lot of people to feel that exposure. So to work with this point, it's important to ask yourself a bigger question first. Because before you can be intimate with anyone else, you need to first ask whether you can be intimate with yourself.
Yeah, I agree.
And what does that mean to be intimate with yourself? Maybe the question is better said, can you access yourself, your own heart, your own spirit living in your heart?
Yeah, I think for some people it's really, really painful. They might feel like they're too vulnerable, or they've had past trauma, or they just can't get through the trauma that's buried in there, or they're afraid it's going to resurface, and that's just too hard in the moment, so they just keep it where it is.
And that's okay. It just means that you'll have to address the trauma before you can have intimacy with yourself. So sometimes you don't want to access yourself because your opinion of yourself is too negative. And for whatever reason, you've got some self-hatred. So that's another reason that it might be difficult. So intimacy with someone you hate, that's not cool. Even if it's you might hate yourself. So that's not going to work either. So if
Yeah.
you're being vulnerable with yourself and then you beat yourself up, that's obviously not going to work.
That's going to be challenging. So you can go back to some of the earlier themes, which we've talked about, which can create a bit more self-love, self-acceptance, self-awareness, the watcher in your life. We also talked about the vigilant mind, how you can talk to yourself, before you can move forward on that deeper intimacy.
Yeah.
Which is very common. Don't feel like there's something wrong with you because it's
No.
the first step for everyone.
Oh, intimacy is really hard for a lot of people. So the first question, can you be vulnerable with yourself? It's okay to say no, just like you'd say no to someone else who doesn't feel safe. We all know that's really important.
Yeah, you have the right to say no, even if it is to yourself.
Yeah. And then the second question is, can you be intimate with someone else? And this requires an equally deep examination of your beliefs about trust and intimacy.
Yeah, because again, if you've been hurt before, you might not want to ever be in that vulnerable position again.
Yeah.
It just hurts too much.
So, you can ask, how are you going to trust again? Are you able to feel safe exposing your most vulnerable parts of yourself with a trusted person? How are you going to let anyone into your inner sanctum? How can you trust yourself to know who is safe if you failed to have good judgment in the past? So the key to healing whatever trauma or past hurts that may be preventing you from being vulnerable and intimate with someone else is recognizing you get to choose, and also recognizing that every relationship, no matter who it's with, is a risk. And to keep asking yourself, is this risk worth it?
And I'm going to add to that, and can I still be myself?
Yeah.
Can I be true to myself? Is my heart truly opened?
Yeah.
And then maybe is it worth it,
Exactly. So it's a bit like going back to one of the earlier Ghost Point themes, Ghost Convincing, which we talked about in episode 133. The one where you were like a little kid staring out at all the kids playing outside, but not feeling safe enough to go join them outside.
Yeah. Yep, I get that. I remember that.
Yeah. So in this case, it's not about playing with your acquaintances who you don't really know that well. This is much harder. This is about whether you're willing to risk letting someone into that inner sanctum.
Yeah, that little room that we talked about. And for most people, this takes time to explore and examine. And again, to ask yourself, what is preventing you from taking that risk?
Yeah. So that's Ghost Hall. And now we come to the toughest one
Most
of all.
most challenging for many people.
challenging.
Yes.
Yes, Ghost Hidden. So in my opinion, for most people, this is the biggest theme.
But not always.
But not always.
But not always.
Yeah. But this is about all the things that you might be hiding from the world.
That's probably why they called it Ghost Hidden.
Exactly.
Right? No. It's the things you're ashamed about, you're embarrassed about, you feel guilty about. You know, the big one, the big three there.
Yeah, shame and guilt. It's what it's all about. And most humans have some shame or some guilt, even if it's just about, hey, I could have done that better. But it's that feeling of maybe I'm bad or wrong because of how I did things in the past. And this is where it can be really helpful to actually receive a Ghost Points treatment, because to get from shame and guilt to a feeling of innocence, that can be a challenging road for some people who really believe they did do something wrong in the past. And it's important to know that it is possible. You have to forgive yourself first. It's funny how we're often quicker to forgive someone else, even someone who really hurt you, but maybe it's really, really hard to forgive yourself.
I think that's true for a lot of people.
Yeah.
They don't even think about, yes, they forgive people, but when they start to look inside, it's really challenging. And so again, we've talked about this in the past, that advance the level of forgiveness.
Yeah. And in fact, we usually work on advanced forgiveness in stage 3 of Alchemy. But this really relates to this particular ghost hidden theme. Can you forgive both those who harmed you and your own part in it? Like, for example, you might think, why did I go do that thing and I got so hurt? So you're blaming yourself, even though there's a perpetrator who hurt you. So it's about that forgiveness that we would say is advanced. And can you even forgive God, or maybe you call it the divine or the universe or life, whatever you want to call the unfolding of your life. Can you even forgive that?
Yeah, and I would think that was really nice too. And rather than go through how to do advanced forgiveness, because again, it's pretty advanced, we can send people to the alchemylearningcenter.com. And guess what? We have a guided meditation there. So
Yeah.
that'll help you. We'll put that in the show notes for anyone who's interested.
Yeah. And generally speaking, it's about offering forgiveness to whoever you're mad at. And ultimately, that forgiveness releases you and returns you back to that state of innocence we're talking about that maybe you've never felt since the moment you were born. Because when you're born, that's when you're truly innocent. So that's the freedom that we're all looking for. And what we, Jay and I, love about the ghost points is it frees you up, especially like for this point, from the past shame and guilt that you might be carrying around all the time with you. And it's a heavy load for a lot of people.
And I think freedom, I know that word is, talked about a lot, but it's like a deeper inner knowing freedom, that innocence that like we sometimes forget that that's ours.
Yeah.
And it was taken or given or lost. And this is a way to start to get back on the path of reclaiming that. That's rightfully yours. It belongs to every single person on this planet.
For many people, when I'm doing a ghost points treatment, I think this concept of innocence is so foreign to them.
Yeah.
It's kind of mind-boggling when I first introduced the concept related to this theme. We talk a lot about the themes in the ghost point treatments. And it's just like, what? I could get back to a state of innocence? What?
It's just
it's really
quite
cool.
amazing.
Yeah.
And we're very happy to be talking about this today. I was very happy. I learned a couple things, little things that I had forgotten about. So I'm just thrilled.
Yeah.
And so for homework, go do the Advanced Forgiveness Meditation in the alchemylearningcenter.com. And hopefully, if you're a member, it's included in your membership. If not, think about being a member. And we will see you in the Learning Center soon. Again, Heart-Centered Alchemy in February 27th.
Yes.
Go to the website. We also have some emails coming out, so you'll be getting some emails on that. We hope to see you soon. And also, the book is coming out. So, Lita, tell them what the name of the book is.
Cultivating the 13 Ghost Points.
What a coincidence. We're just talking about the ghost point. So we will give you lots of information when that comes out. It should be any day now.
All right.
Thank you. Take care. Bye. You've been listening to the Inspired Action Podcast, and you've reached the end. Woohoo! Why not celebrate a little bit and click that subscribe button right there. We love having you with us on this journey, and we want it to continue.
You can also rate and review this podcast. And if you have already, thank you so much. We read all reviews, and your reviews help other people find this podcast as well. You can also be a part of this podcast yourself by submitting a voice recording message and emailing it to us at lita@inspiredactionpodcast.com or jay@inspiredactionpodcast.com.
And if you want, you can join our Facebook group or follow us on Instagram.
Join us next week for another Inspired Action conversation. And thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening, and remember to hug the dog.